Welcome back to my channel. If you are brand new here, my name is Kylie and I make content about being a young person living with narcolepsy. If you don't know what narcolepsy is, congrats, you are in the majority. Head on over to my Narcolepsy 101 video where I break it down for you. The purpose of my channel is to show that you can still live a very fulfilling life even if you have a sleep disorder. And I do that by sharing different information about narcolepsy, sharing stories from others, spreading awareness, and also sharing my experience about being pregnant with narcolepsy. In this video, we are talking all about getting a diagnosis because that's where it starts. Well, that's where it starts to get good, I'll put it that way. Did you know that out of the people that have narcolepsy, only 25% actually have a diagnosis, which means 75% of people with narcolepsy are out there not living their best lives because they don't even know that they have it. And they're probably feeling awful on a regular basis. Maybe people are pointing the finger, calling them lazy, or like they're making excuses for their life. And really, they have something they haven't uncovered yet. I think part of the reason that it is so hard to diagnose narcolepsy is because the type of symptoms that come with it, some can be very vague, and certain people have a couple symptoms, others have all of them. It could be mild for some, severe for others. So it's hard to pinpoint sometimes because some of the symptoms could point to other medical conditions. I think that contributes to a lot of people not finding out. And also a lot of people aren't pushy like I was, and that can hold them back too from getting a diagnosis. Today we are going to take the baby steps to getting a diagnosis for narcolepsy. Step number 1, self-evaluation. There's a thing called the Epworth Sleepiness Scale. This is something I pulled from Harvard's website. They have a lot of great information about narcolepsy, and this is something you can do online, or you could print it out and fill it out that way. I will link that below in case you want to do that self-evaluation yourself. Basically how this works is you're going to measure your likeliness to fall asleep in certain situations based on this scale here, 0 through 3, and it explains what each of those numbers means. Here is a look at what the situations they will present for you to decide how likely you are to fall asleep or doze off during. And some of those include sitting inactive in a public place and sitting in a car as a passenger for an hour. Once you have completed the self-evaluation, there will be a section at the bottom that shows you what your score means. So whether you have the normal amount of sleepiness in adults, if you have mild, severe, moderate sleepiness. It does say that if you score an 11 or higher, then you should consult a sleep doctor. So this is a good little tool to use to start you down your journey of getting a diagnosis. The next step would be finding a doctor, somebody that specializes in narcolepsy and other sleep disorders. And typically that is a neurologist. If you can't find one on your own by doing research, or you're not certain which one's a good one, you could always reach out to your primary doctor and ask them to refer you to one. One tip I have before you go in to see this doctor once you've found one is to take some time at home and write down all of the things you have been feeling. Every detail you can possibly remember. Whatever you think is just not normal for you that may contribute to your narcolepsy or whatever health condition you may have, and write down any questions you might also have. It is very easy to get so overwhelmed, and when you're there, they ask you questions and you answer the questions, but you don't think about all of the other things in the back of your mind that at one point you knew you wanted to ask them. But if you write it down, bring that paper with you and tell them everything. This is going to help you communicate to the doctor better about what you've been feeling, and you'll feel better at the end of that appointment. And it helps them to diagnose you more accurately as well. Then it will be time to do the actual testing, which you may be excited for, maybe a little nervous. Either way, you're going to find out if you have it or not, so it's a good thing. There are 2 types of tests that you'll do. Typically, you will go to your doctor's office or a sleep center. This picture that I'm putting here, I got it from the website of the doctor's office that I went to. And I don't think it looked quite like that. I want to say it was a cuter room than that, but it kind of just looked like a little hotel room. What you're going to do at night is the polysomnogram, which is also known as the sleep study. And basically around like 8-ish, 9-ish o'clock, they will have you hooked up to all these wires. This image here shows pretty closely what it looks like when you're all hooked up. You have wires everywhere, and there's even a box, and then you're like connected to something in the wall. There will be a microphone recording any noises you might make. There is a camera watching you to see any movement that you might make. And what they are doing while you're sleeping all night is just monitoring any way you are breathing, eye movements, etc. The more important test is called the multiple sleep latency test, also known as the MSLT. And basically that is just a series of naps that they're going to monitor how quickly you go into REM sleep. In a 20-minute period, most people wouldn't start to actually have REM sleep until at least 8 minutes of that 20 minutes. But if you have narcolepsy, you will typically go into that sooner. What they'll usually do is have you wake up in the morning. I believe it was like 6 o'clock for me. And they will turn on all the lights, tell you to sit up, turn on the TV, give you breakfast, and have you stay awake for an hour. And then they will come in, turn the lights off, turn the TV off, and say, go to sleep. And they give you 20 minutes. And then they come in there, turn the lights on, do the whole thing again. And you do that 5 times. So it's like noon by the time you're done with this. This is the most accurate way for them to determine if you have narcolepsy. I do want to give you some tips on seeking diagnosis for narcolepsy or really any medical condition if you're struggling to find one. And the first tip I have is your primary doctor is just that. They help you with primary problems. You have a cold, you have a flu, maybe a sinus infection, they are your person. They do not specialize in everything, and they can refer you to somebody. Now, some doctors will try process of elimination, and I think they maybe mean well, but if your symptoms are worsening and worsening by the day, you may need to speak up and use that voice, advocate for yourself, and demand that they send you to a specialist. If you have insurance that requires that you have to have a referral to go to a specialist and your primary doctor will not give you one, you may want to look at trying a different primary doctor. Another tip, and this one is usually for when you do not have health insurance. If you find yourself at the ER because you don't have a primary doctor because you don't have health insurance and you can't afford these hefty doctor bills and you're desperate, and I have been there, so I feel you, just know that the ER is not the place. Like, they are kind of equivalent to your primary doctor where they have their niche and they are not a specialist in sleep disorders. Sometimes they do have different specialists in hospitals, but I don't know about sleep doctors. I feel like that would be very uncommon, but at the very least, if you find yourself at the ER because you're desperate, see if they have one in the hospital that you can talk to. Or tell them you want a referral to a sleep specialist. And if that's all you get out of that ER trip, that is way better than leaving with absolutely nothing. And my last tip is to be honest with yourself. When you have something happening to your body and you're not sure what it is and you get so desperate for a diagnosis, sometimes it's easy to just say, okay, when they say, oh, it's this. Because you're like, heck yes, please let it be that so I can start working on the solution for that. For example, at one point they told me I might have vertigo. So they prescribed me whatever medication for that. And I took it so excitingly and I was over the moon like, yes, I have vertigo and it's gonna be gone after I take this medication. And that was not true because that's not what I had. But my point is, keep speaking up and keep searching. Do not settle. Keep working towards getting that actual diagnosis. Whether it's narcolepsy, sleep apnea, another sleep disorder, or anything else. You deserve to live the best quality of life that you can, and so you should advocate for yourself. With all this being said, once you have a diagnosis, it's a great moment because you know what's wrong and you can start working on that solution. but there will probably be frustrating things that happen next when it comes to getting the actual treatment. In the near future, I will have a video that is all about advocating for yourself, as I have found that I have really strengthened my muscle with putting my foot down and getting things done through having narcolepsy. And I think some of my tips can help others to do the same, since you are your best advocate at the end of the day. Nobody's going to go to bat for you like you will. If you or a loved one has narcolepsy and you'd like to share any story relating, please send it to me in the email that is in the description below. I would love to hear it and read it anonymously in an effort to spread awareness about narcolepsy and help other people feel more related too. That's all I have for this video, and I will see you in the next one.